Hey, and welcome back to part two, our 77 and a half, the episode, with Mr. Charlie McBride. And we were talking about Charles Manson and all on that wacky funster stuff he was doing in the courtrooms. Now, we had talked about the attempt to have him, why he did not try to do a retrial and all this and that, because that's the thing. Almost your entire time when you're on death row, because we dealt with a lot of those guys, is constantly doing appeals. You will throw appeals out until they run out, and usually have a certain set level. But like you said, he never seemed to do any of that. Do you think that it was a thing where he's like, you know what, I did my time, I said what I had to do out there, this is home, this is what I feel comfortable in, and so I'm staying, now y'all can feed me?
Yes, I believe that's true. I think on some level, Manson was resigned to spending out the remainder of his days in prison, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I think he knew he would never get paroled. And in my opinion, he shouldn't have been paroled. But I always was curious because till the day he died, he was very, very bitter about the fact that during those trials, that first trial in 1970 and 1971, that he didn't get to put on the defense. I've heard him mention that in interviews and tapes of his phone calls at least a dozen times. So that really aided him. But I've always wondered why he himself didn't try to get a retrial. And my best guess is that no one would take on the case for him. That his brand, that's a douchey way of putting it, but his brand may have been considered too toxic for any lawyer to take that on, especially to take it on for free, because if they were successful and they got him out, that lawyer himself or herself would probably not have a law practice afterwards.
Yeah, they'd definitely be a pariah. And because I was thinking, well, I mean, conceivably he could have went to ACLU or something, but I don't know. I don't know if they would mess with it. I don't know.
No.
I mean, I really don't know if he had any hope out there at all.
No, it's very difficult. There's, for your audience out there, there is a drama, huge drama going on right now in the Manson world over his estate. And one of the participants in it, a man named Michael Channels, had a very, very difficult time getting a lawyer who was willing to take him on as a client related to Manson's will and his estate. And that is a half of a century later.
Yeah. Well, and that's, like you said, there are just certain moments in history. And, I'm a big sci-fi guy and a big horror guy. And you've often heard about, okay, well, we'll go back and kill Hitler, or we'll go back and this and that. And I know I'm taking it out there, but roll with me.
Yeah.
But they say, you know what? There's certain things you're not gonna stop World War II. You're not gonna do. There are just certain things that are so large. I mean, because it went all through the media in the U.S. I mean, it was like all the time. I mean, it was worldwide. It wasn't just like, oh, well, there's a couple, knuckleheads in California doing this and that, and some hippies. But it kind of lit that wildfire, that fear,
Yes.
and it really polarized a lot of people, kind of like it is now. And so you got some people, I think initially maybe people were like, well, nah, man, it's just the government's against them or whatever. And then some people was like, well, no, I mean, they really did some horrific stuff and, cut babies out of
Yes.
people. And that's iconic. I mean, I've seen the photos of the murders. I mean, not for any sort of perverse thing, but it's just like, well, if you're going to know about it, you're going to have to research it, and you got to look at the crime scene photos.
Yes.
And they were, man, those are harsh. I mean, and I've seen guys stab each other to death in prison cells.
Mm-hmm.
To see that, especially with someone who is pregnant, it's just as a guy, and I know it probably sounds sexist or whatever, but it freaking chills me.
Yes. Yes. For your audience listening to this, Sharon Tate was 8.5 months pregnant when she was killed by the Manson gang that night. One of the most famous people, Susan Atkins, otherwise known as Sadie, she actually tasted her blood and said it tasted groovy, her words. And she said she considered taking the taking the baby out of the dead body. She didn't.
Yeah.
But they're horrific. Lino LaBianca of the LaBianca Night had the word war carved into his torso, and had a fork stuck through his abdomen, and had a knife stuck through his throat.
Yeah. Well, you take stuff like, well, like The Hills Have Eyes. Some people say, well, there was a supposed family out in the woods that did something similar. But then I heard a lot of people said, no, well, we took a lot of that, a nod from the Manson killings and the kind of marauder quality of it. Because I was thinking, I'd always heard that she had considered taking the baby out, and I was thinking, well, what is she going to eat the kid or something? But then some people said, no, to bring her into the family. What, like an
Yes.
ultimate fu to raise a socialite, a Hollywood royalty at the time, child as the next generation of Manson follower. That
Well,
would
she
be a
didn't know
really
who Sharon Tate was. They didn't know. They thought they were a pretty group, and they killed them. And I'm going to say something. I hope this comes out properly. Sharon Tate wasn't famous in life. She was famous in death. She was on some movies and a TV show or two, but she only had, I think, it was like a handful of lines total in the course of her career. To the extent she was known, it was known as Mrs. Roman Polanski.
right.
And I don't mean that to knock her. I'm just putting a
No, I mean,
tiny bit of context in there. I think they were going to
fact is
raise
fact.
yeah, if they had done all that, and if the child had survived, they would. I guess it would have raised. It didn't come down to that, and for all we know, Susan Atkins, Sadie, was known as the craziest of the bunch, and so she could have just been lying about that particular aspect of it to make herself seem tough in prison.
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
that's where she said, I was considering cutting the baby out and etc. She could have just been lying too.
right. And she did a lot of that. I mean, you could tell that she. Okay, man, I'm trying. I make a lot of references to shows and whatnot. There was something, and somebody was talking about. Some girl was talking to some friend of hers, and she said, "Wow, I wish a vampire had come in my house and killed my parents and took me away." I said, "Yeah, no more Twilight for you." It seemed like she was really able to fall into that fantasy element and roll with it. She really had that weird disconnect that a cult follower really needs. You
Yes,
know,
absolutely. Uh, she absolutely bought everything, hook, line, and sinker for what it was worth.
yeah. Well, and the thing is, not. I mean, some of those people. I mean, a fair amount of them, I think, because everybody knows like Gypsy and Squeaky and Susan and the other kind of center ring of it.
Hmm.
But like I said, there were so many other kind of connected followers and connected family members. People didn't realize that even after all that went down, there were still a fair amount of people who more or less followed Charlie's doctrines and were ready, man. If I'm assuming if he said, "Hey, it's time to go to war. It's time to go. Let's go bomb a courthouse. Let's go bomb whatever this embassy," they probably would have been.
Hmm.
They would have been down for it.
Well, Gypsy spent time in prison specifically for an armed robbery attempt on a munitions store in Hawthorne, California, that involved a shootout with the cops, where her and a few others had the idea that they were going to get some weapons, jack Manson out of prison, hijack a plane, and get him to freedom. This is when he was already convicted and sitting in death row at that point.
Yeah, that's so crazy how. I mean, they had it all planned out. They really really broke it down and like you said, I mean, it might have been like it's like a crazy episode of some sitcom, but I mean, they were serious about it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If we think about it, the kind of person who would be attracted to that, they would be lost souls, willing to do anything. And within the echo chamber of that group, they got really violent or capable of violence real quick. The Manson family saga is only about 2 years long, maybe 3 years if you extend it out to the Hawthorne shootout. But in terms of when they were a group and Manson was on the outside, it's about 2 years. That's it. They weren't together 10 or 15 years. It's about 24 months. In fact, Leslie Van Houten, who is in jail for her role in participating in the La Bianca night, I think she had been in the group 9 months, or maybe sometime between 9 months and a year and 3 months. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's how far they went that quickly.
Well, I think too that you go from that kind of nuclear family vibe, even up through the '60s. Most families were still relatively conservative. Maybe mom had, butterfly collars and had kind of a Brady Bunch look, maybe a touch.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of let the beehive down a little bit, something a little bit more groovy and stuff. But they're definitely, I think it hit people like, okay, again, movies. The scene in Night of the Living Dead where the little girl became the zombie, to
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, these are our kids. These are
Yes.
this could that girl looks like the girl down the street. I know her family. Some of them did come from money, and like the Krenwinkel situation. It's so strange, and like you said, it happens so damn fast that it's like, oh, it's not like they were on an island for 15, 20, 30 years. They were constantly being raped and beat, and kind of a Stockholm syndrome. It's like,
Yes.
I
No.
don't know if he saw something in them or whatever, but they, like you said,
You're
they
exactly
really
right.
jumped for it, and I think it scared the hell out of people.
Well, if you look at Tex Watson, in my opinion, Tex Watson was by far the worst of the bunch. That includes Charles Manson. He was by far the worst. Uh, he killed the most people on the most nights, etc. But Tex Watson was an All-American athlete. I shouldn't say All-American. He was an exceptional high school athlete.
Right.
He was very popular in high school, very handsome. Look what happened to him. Leslie Van Houten was a homecoming queen. Krenwinkel considered becoming a nun. Brenda, Nancy Pittman, grew up wealthy in Malibu. These
Right.
were people that, on the surface, they weren't necessarily disaffected or losers. And yet something happened to each and every one of them where they became either estranged from their family or estranged from society. And they
Right.
ended up coming together with terrible consequences. And can I make one quick point about this, about Krenwinkel? I know I said earlier that I don't believe the helter skelter motive is true, meaning that I don't believe Charles Manson told his followers, go kill these people, and by doing that, there'll be a race war, and the blacks will win, then they'll fail at leadership, and then I, Charles Manson, will run the show. I think that's ludicrous. However, on some level, Helter Skelter did factor into this because Patricia Krenwinkel herself wrote Helter Skelter in Lino LaBianca's blood on the refrigerator of their house. And I know that kind of contradicts what I've said, and that's the fascinating mystery to this, to people who are interested in this, why they did what they did and
Right.
who thought what was going on. Well, I actually believe on some level Krenwinkel thought there was a helter-skelter thing going down. Otherwise, why would she write it? But I
Right.
don't believe that Manson or perhaps even Tex Watson believed it.
Well, two things. First thing is, like you said, you hear the whole thing. Charlie was a big Beatles fan, and this and that. But like you said, I mean, he was more of an old school type music person. I mean, he did a lot of acoustic stuff. Look at Your Game Girl, the song like that, and I forgot the name of the one that the Beach Boys did. Supposedly,
Cease to Exist
that's it.
is that's the name of his version of it.
Okay, and but as regards of Krenwinkel, and this is going to kind of sound like I'm sort of trying to be like a deep psych educator or something, but maybe it was a thing of going, I hated my life. The people that are living like that were almost like me. In a lot of ways, they mirror me. They're as good as dead anyway. Let's kill them. Or it's more of like one of those things like you always hear about people who brutalize somebody and stab the face and distort the face. It's someone that they know
Yeah.
and they hate something in them, or they want something that they can't have, or whatever. There's that love hate flip in it, and I really think I might have factored into that because, like you said, why do you flip that hard? Maybe you hate it so much, it was such a trap to you, you want to just burn all of it down. I mean, I don't know
I
if it,
don't, I don't know. I don't know what her psychology was back then or how much hate she had in her heart. I do know she felt devoted to Manson a lot because he treated her in a loving way that she was not used to. and in exchange she got her loyalty. But why they went out and did what they did, we'll never know for sure. But there's lots of theories and about it, and I'm sure the participants all had different motivations for different reasons. For example, I believe that Krenwinkel and Sadie, Susan Atkins, probably did it for entirely different reasons than Tex Watson, who was really, I would argue, the ringleader, especially on the Tate night.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I mean, it totally does. I mean, because like you said, it's just, I don't know. I mean, and this is just going from kind of thinking like a little bit like a convict would, just because I worked with so many of them. I'm like, look, man, I don't care what drawer the knife come from, as long as it cuts well. You know,
Yeah.
as long as it does the damage I want it to do. Hey, man, you jump over the hill, yell Geronimo. You jump over the hill, say Saint George. You jump over the hill and say whatever Allah. We don't care, man. Whatever God you want, we're burning this down, or whatever
Yeah.
thing, whatever totem, whatever mantra. Yeah, man, go with that. It works for me because it's chess pieces, and so like you said, then you end up with what you got, man. You got all these different kind of people from different backgrounds coming together, which in another situation might have been really decent, because I mean there were a lot of people trying to do communal things, but as usual, as anybody wanting to be in a utopian society, there always ends up being a pecking order of rulers, the muscle and
Yes.
the servants, and then the disenfranchised and kind of cast
Exactly.
off. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
I mean, Lord of the Flies. I mean, it all comes back to that. And I don't know, man. I mean, I think that's why, partially, I think to me that really exemplifies the death of the 60s. I think it was coming to a close anyway, but I think that was the nail. And then, of course, from the ashes of that, kids, young teenagers and whatever, watching that, it rolls right off into like punk, and it rolls off into that nihilistic kind of don't matter, man, none of it matters, just whatever, and because everybody was so numb at that point. So I don't know. I mean, that's my take on it.
Well, I know what you're trying to say, and I don't know, because I'm curious if you believe that the 60s in general were a time of discord or a time of happiness, because I view them as a time of discord, and it was a punctuation, a horrible one,
Right.
that furthered that theme, at least in my opinion. But then again, I wasn't alive and conscious back then, so I can't really say what was going on, because
No.
we live in a time of discord probably right now too.
Well,
I'll get off that, but they say it's the death of the 60s. Well, it was in 1969.
right.
I don't think that the 60s were an innocent time. I feel that they were a time of rebellion as it was.
No, I totally agree. No, what I mean is when I say that, it's a thing of that whole concept of peace and love as kind of a goal for some. But then again, there's also, like you said, people getting bun guts. What the hell's wrong with me? Gun butts to the head, and people, torching cop cars, which that's a violent act too. I mean, nobody was innocent. Nobody was 100%
Yes.
innocent. So yeah, it was super volatile, man. And that's the thing. I mean, entropy is just the nature of it, and I think it's always going to be somewhat volatile. It's how we react to the volatile nature and stuff. But I think, how do I say this, man? And this is just coming maybe from a poor kid. Maybe I misconstrue it and see it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But usually the ones that were really, really, really pushing for yeah, man, it's cool. We'll go out and we'll ride around in our VW Beetle and we'll smoke weed and we'll this and that. These were like college kids who maybe didn't have to work as hard, and maybe they already come from affluent families in their post baby boomer generation of going, oh well, we want to have a better life for our kids so they don't struggle so hard. But boom, there they are, and now they got free time, so they're doing whatever. So I think that, like you said, it's where you're from, and I'm sure there were hippies kind of here, but I think the more affluent and the more options you have, it might have been a little bit more appealing to someone who's like, hey, I grew up on a farm, man. I really don't want to raise hogs. I really don't want to, I cut tobacco growing up. That's not
Yeah.
groovy. That's not cool for me. I'm looking to get like a job. I'm looking to get a nice apartment and then get paid, get a nice ride. Still kind of reaching for that, 65 love affair type thing. They kind of
Yeah.
want that iconic vibe. Um, and I think a lot of people saw hippies as a threat to that. So, you know, it depends who you talk to. Some people look at Manson like a hero, like, yeah, man, kill, whatever. You kind
They
of
view
put,
him as a scapegoat, or a lot of some people, not a lot. I would say some people say that he was somewhat of a scapegoat for like a receptacle for all of society's ill will.
yeah, whipping boy for, and a fine focal point to everyone to go, he's it, that he's the problem. And then it does, oh, we don't have to take any of the blame on ourselves. We don't have to go, well, why do these kids feel the disenfranchised, feel the need to go chase some freaking whacked out
You sound like
ex-con.
Sandra Good. For your audience, that she was a very, very devoted member of a follower of Manson, and she was saying very, very similar things to what you're saying now.
Well, I mean,
Very similar things.
I'm not saying that's exactly
Yeah,
what I
you're
feel.
hypothesizing.
Exactly. I'm devil's advocate for it or Charlie's advocate, whatever. But I don't know. I think first of all, the system failed Charlie. That's a fact. Um, but some of the
How so?
choices, well, in regards of the family system wasn't there. Okay.
Okay.
We understand he was basically, excuse my language, basically a bastard, more or less. And
Yes.
he grew up in the worst elements, the poorest elements, and so he learned to hustle and he learned to do this and that. Instead of there was, I don't think there was really a lot of social catch nets. And again,
There
not
weren't.
making an excuse, but
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people that come through that and grew up and said, well, you know what? It's been lawless here. I want to become a cop. I want to do something positive. I want to help my neighborhood. I want it to be, but he went another way. But
Yeah.
so that can't be. That's not a free get out of jail card for Charlie. But I think that definitely played into it. I think if
Yeah.
maybe he had come up and had better some sort of just any kind of working social skills in anything other than that really grimy subculture, and kind of just normal strata of middle class America, whatever that is. But I do think that factored into it. I don't think Charles Manson would necessarily have been the Charles Manson we knew. Now he may have done something different. He still might have been, crazy or a cult leader. He may have been like another Jim Jones or something, or maybe who knows? He might have got religion and turned around and was like a really, really influential evangelist or something because he
He,
had that
he was
vibe.
very religious. He was genuinely religious.
Yeah.
He
Well,
really was.
look at guys like Kinison, Sam Kinison. He was very much a fire and brimstone preacher for years ago, but something clicked. Moments happened that changed him, and
Yeah.
each of them went on their own road. And that's not to demonize Kinison, uh,
Yeah.
but like you said, everyone digests grief and digests rough situations differently, and for whatever reason, that's the way he went. And I think especially once he went down the path through all the boys' towns and to all the different, lockups and all that, just every time, man, he come out with a new degree in something,
Sure.
some nefarious crap.
Wiliness.
Wily, that's a great word.
Yeah, because you have to be
Nefariousness.
wily to a certain degree to survive in prison. He said he has a biography, or I should say, a semi-autobiography, and he claims, and I don't think he was lying, that he was raped in prison
Guarantee
by
it.
at least a boy. I don't know if it was a group of boys, that he
Yeah.
was abused by the guards,
Hmm.
and that's going to change the way that's going to alter a person's psyche in many different ways.
Right. Well, and you know, it's one of those things because, like I said, you watch stuff like Oz and things like that, and don't get me wrong, you have different levels of conflict. You have different levels of communication. It's just like maybe if you have this company, or it's like wrestling. Okay, it's like wrestling. Hulk is saying this on the camera. I'll bust you up, and this guy, no, man, I will take you down. And then after that, they'll go, hey, man, you did a pretty good performance. Hey, thanks. You want to go catch a steak after the show?
Yeah.
like that. I think there's backroom deals everywhere. There was definitely racial things where in the prisons that I worked, but there was also that thing of going, hey, you know what's, I'm cool, I'm white, you're cool that you're black. You know what's even better? Selling dope. Let's
Yeah.
make some money because everybody likes green, and that's how it works. That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, the AB is basically about green, not necessarily about white.
yes, yes, and so I mean, it's kind of the thing that people fail to mention, and it's weird because maybe I just have a slightly different view working in that type of environment,
Yeah.
and because there's a lot of people that idolize them in there. It's that kind of underdog vibe, even though
Yes.
he effed up, even though he did something super thuggy and just kind of off the
Yes.
hook. They're going, yeah, but he ain't that
There
bad.
are a lot of people who view Charles Manson as an underdog, and specifically things like no parental support. He never knew who his real dad was. Terrible relationship with his mother in terms of her raising him being stuck in all these institutions. There's a lot of people who identify with that. There's a lot of people who identify with the fact that he wasn't allowed to put on the type of defense he wanted, and that a lot of people within the world who are interested in this feel
Right.
that he was definitely demonized and scapegoated far more than he should have, especially in the context when the real murderer, in terms of the killer, the person who was taking human lives, was Charles Watson, not Charles Manson, Tex Watson.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you can, I can tell a lot of people a lot of stuff, but especially, and you can't even call heat of passion crimes. If you got to drive 45 minutes down a bunch of winding California roads or whatever to get up in somewhere, wait to get in, wait for your opening. That's a lot of time to go. Should I really,
Yes.
So
Yes.
they can't even
Yes.
claim that. But let me
No.
ask you something. Like I said,
Uh-huh.
we've got just a couple minutes left in this
Sure.
second segment, and I want to have you on more, and I want to do
Mhm.
maybe a little deeper in the aftermath of the trials, what's happened with the people that were convicted, what happened
Okay.
with the remaining free family members, and maybe
Sure.
touch on some of the grandkids and this whole legal
Sure.
battle about Charlie's body. A lot of people
We could
don't
have an entire episode on that, and I have very strong
easily,
opinions on it.
easily. And what I want to ask though is again, Charlie is Love, Facebook, correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Dale, do you have a Charlie is Love on Twitter or anything like that? Do you have anything that you need to
Oh, no.
promote or bring up?
Just nope, nothing like that. If you're interested in learning about the Manson family, interested in learning about the Tate LaBianca trials or Charles Manson, just go there. I put up some pictures. We have some commentary. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but at the same time, it's not ridiculous and jokey. But I think that Stevie's description at the very beginning of the first part of this episode was exactly on point, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know if you've seen, like, I think last week I went down to Gatlinburg, Tennessee to, I
Yeah.
think it was a Ripley's Museum, and they had a lot of Charlie's cell stuff and his number and had a picture, and I was sitting there kind of did like the little heart with my hands and tongue in
Yeah.
cheek, man. Yeah, I don't want this guy anywhere near my family, but it was just sort of like, it was jokey, and I can afford to be jokey because I'm not in that situation. But
Yeah.
like you said, man, you have to laugh at the things that scare you. Charlie Chaplin doing The Great Dictator, that was a big thumb in the nose of guys like Hitler and dark stuff. You have to laugh at really dark stuff, or you're not going to get through it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a
That's a good point.
just a fact. But Mr. McBride, thank you so much for being on. I'm going to start my outro right here.
Okay.
And again, we will have you back on. But I want to remind everybody to please go to stevieasher.com and join up. And you can find out about my books, Hauntings of the Kentucky State Penitentiary, Hauntings of the Western Lunatic Asylum, and some new projects I'm involved in. Also, you can go to House of Asher on YouTube. Looks like I'll be running my new episodes on my actual channel. So look up House of Asher Podcast and go out and have a good evening and have a good day tomorrow. And go out there and do positive things. But as the sun settles and the shadows grow long, make sure to look beneath your bed, in your closet, out your back hallway. You never know. You may have somebody doing the creepy crawl. But you know what? It's safe. You know, the evil is gone. The toilet's been flushed. So your job here is done. So until then, love each other and love yourselves. Until next time, don't be afraid to be a little scared. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Hey, you there, Stevie?